Crew Pros, your single source for high-quality, affordable home services. If you are remodeling, repairing, or replacing, Crew Pros are the professionals that can do the job no matter the size. If you are thinking of remodeling your kitchen or bath, needing a new HVAC system, plumbing repairs, flooring, or a complete roof replacement, call Crew Pros. Crew Pros, proud sponsor of the Grizz 901 podcast.
Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee, the beautiful land in the world.
And I'm thankful for this guy who tweeted and said, I don't have that fire in my eye no more. That game right there was for him. That's what I do. I prove people wrong each and every night, and that's for him right there.
Hi, this is Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and you're listening to Grizz 901.
What up, Grizz Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Grizz 901. We are hosted and presented by Zach Jaworski, State Farm, where they treat you like family. I am your host, Daniel Greer, and with me is my other host, the main dude. He's our main chick, Ryan Meadows. What's up?
Doing all right, man. Just the start of actual high school basketball practices has got me extremely busy right now. So basically I'm out on the road every day of the week now, like I usually am anyways. But now it's practice stuff. So I've got boys and girls practices, and I've got my son's first practice tonight. So I will be on a basketball court basically from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So the grind doesn't stop.
The grind doesn't stop. I like it, man. I'm actually coaching my kiddo again this year. And so she is 7. And so that'll be a fun time for basketball. You're doing a little bit older kids. I get it. Right. Okay. It's pretty much the same though. 7,
yeah,
17, whatever.
They're the same.
Yeah, pretty much the same. All right. So this show, we want to talk a little bit about, the game that happened last night. And I want to play a game that I played in our, it was Memphis Wilcox, the Grindhouse Grizzlies people. They always host different shows. And I asked this question. And so we're going to go over a lot of the game last night where the Grizzlies, they fell to the Celtics 109-106. It was a good all around game. Jason Tatum went off as he always does. It seems like played really well against the Grizzlies. But I want to ask a question before we get into any of the Celtic stuff. I want to talk about the Grizzlies first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You watched the entire game, correct?
I did. Yes.
Okay. Who was the worst player on the court for the Grizzlies?
The whole
Eyeball
team
test.
or starters and bench?
Everybody. Eyeball test. You're watching the game. This is the worst guy on the court.
I would say the worst guy on the court was Santi Aldama.
Okay. I think he's in the top 3 of being the worst. Santi Aldama played 18 minutes, was a -16. Plus and minus really doesn't mean as much, and I'll explain why in a second. This is the reason I'm going over this. He did have a bad game. He had 1 rebound, right? We projected them to have 6. Vegas, after Steven Adams went out, they put his number at 8.5, which was crazy to me. I almost went under, so I was on both sides of it. But he completely missed. He had one of his worst games personally of the season. So, yeah, I'll give you that one. He was definitely top 3. We're going to keep going down with the stats, though. Anybody else that you want to throw out there?
Well, I think the obvious candidate, which everyone's going to use every game if he doesn't have 20 or 25, is Dylan Brooks, right? And that's basically just because of the shooting numbers. I think that's why people would say that he had a really bad game. He was, 4 for 17 or something like that.
Yeah, he was 6 of 17, 0 of 4
6
from
of 17.
deep.
Yeah, so he's obviously going to be everyone's contender. I thought David Roddy wasn't really good in the limited minutes that he had. Yeah, I guess I would put that as my top 3, if you were to say 3.
All right, well, let's go down those real quick. Let's start off with David Roddy first. 4 minutes and 45 seconds. He had 2 offensive rebounds, which gave him 2 total rebounds overall. And that was it. That's the only numbers in his box score except for field goal attempts, and he had 1. He was over and everything else. Had a whopping minus 15 in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Did not play well. I'd say if you had to look and say minus 15 in 4 minutes, 45 seconds, probably not. Probably not the best player. He probably takes the cake and the worst. Let's go to Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks, plus 13. He was the second highest on the team.
Yeah.
Second highest. 6 of 17, 0 of 4 from deep. He did contribute with 7 total rebounds, all defensively, 5 assists, which is weird that Dillon Brooks is assisting now. He did foul out of the game, with another. He had 1 turnover, so it wasn't anything bad. Nothing on that stat sheet outside of the 17 field goal attempts, except for maybe going 0 or 4 from deep. But 17 field goal attempts is obviously not ideal because Bane took 15 total. Ja took 24. So I don't know if he was the best player, but I know I watched the game and I thought he sucked a lot of it personally.
Yeah.
So you tell me, and I have my opinion. You tell me why box scores or plus minuses lie sometimes.
Because it's all about context, right? Like for Roddy specifically, he just happened to coincide with the Celtics 18-0 run. Like he didn't get a chance.
By the way.
Yeah. Okay. Was it 21? I stopped counting after 18 when it was up 9 to down 9, and then the Grizzlies took the timeout. It kept going, but that's the context that you can kind of miss, right? And you can also apply that context to Dillon, right? Like we gave up a lead while Dillon was out. Maybe you can say that, but we were down 11 or 12 before the Grizzlies made that final push in the 4th before he fouled out, right? So realistically, you would probably say that Dillon was really like a plus 4 or 5 in the game. But with that late push at the end, it's plus 13 because he's just part of that rotation that made that push. So I think plus minus is interesting. I really like box plus minus stuff and analytics, and I know there's faults to it, and everybody can point to anything. There's no analytic marker that's perfect, and plus minus is probably the least perfect out of all of them. But if you have the context of it, I think that is important because while Roddy looked really bad, he just gets that one stint where the Celtics were just on fire, and he doesn't get another stint. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't wrong to not bring Roddy back. I've been kind of saying, why is Roddy playing in the first place? I mean, he's playing right now because out of necessity, right? You just don't have enough bodies. But Santi was the one that's like the plus minus, whatever he was on that. I don't know if you already mentioned it already. That one's warranted to me.
Yeah.
Like he was just not good. And his box plus minus probably backs up to what we actually visually saw because he was out there in different lineups a lot and was just not playing well at all.
Yeah. And I'll explain that. I'll answer your question. Santi Aldama is a minus 16, 3 of 7 from the field, 2 of 6 from deep. So mainly he shot 1 at the rim. Their biggest guy was Al Horford, who he's younger than, should be more fleet of foot. Grant Williams, who people compare to David Roddy, who is undersized, big man. He took 1 shot at the rim. Santi Aldama took 1 shot at the rim, 1 rebound. That was his issue. He was playing a completely different game than he normally does play, but mainly the game that we needed him to play was the game that said, hey, Steven Adams is out. We need someone to fill our big man role. We're putting in Brandon Clark to be the center, but actually on offense, you can get down into the rim a little bit. And on defense, we need you to kind of be the guy who's getting a lot of the rebounds. Brandon Clark did have 8 total rebounds, 7 defensive rebounds, which is good. He played okay. He played fine. I have no problems with how Brandon Clark played. But yes. All right. I'll give you my reasoning about why plus minuses sometimes lie. And the reason is because I look at who do they play with. Ja and Dylan Brooks were most of the time coming in and playing together. So usually what happens is you're subbing somebody out early, and so they can make their way back to help out the second unit. And then when Ja comes back in, they usually go out at some point and then resurface back in to end the quarter. That's Bane's role. That was Jaren Jackson's role last year. So Bane is being more pushed into the second unit because they need a shot creator. They need someone to score because Tyus Jones is not going to score that much, as well as the other people, right? They're rookies. So they're putting in Bane a lot of times to go to the second unit. Well, Bane, if you look at his plus minus, Bane was a -6. And the reason that is probably he was somewhere in that 20-0 run that came from the Celtics. At some point, I would imagine he was in there because it happened early in the second quarter. And that was the reason they had a 37-point quarter. But Dylan Brooks was not in the game at that time. Does that mean that Dylan, when he came in, he was the reason they were good? No, because he came in with Ja. Ja was the highest at a +14. And I think because you have Dylan that gets to play alongside Ja, he gets helped out from being on the court with your best player on your team. And so I think that sometimes you got to be careful. And who are they actually playing alongside of? And that usually will tell you why. I think it's warranted for Tyus Jones a little bit, but he had a -21 in 15 minutes. He was on that big 20-0 run, I would imagine, as well as other runs, like where they just did not look good. And he's not in the third quarter where the Grizzlies scored 31 points and the Grizzlies scored 34 points. He was not in the first and the third quarters more than 2 or 3 minutes at max. He was more in the second and the fourth. Second quarter, the Grizzlies scored 20 points. Fourth quarter, Grizzlies scored 21 points. Ja did not come in until the 7-minute mark when the Celtics went on a 7-0 run right before when he came to the check-in at the score table. Literally, the Celtics went on a 7-0 run to give them a 5-point lead. The Grizzlies were up 2, sent Ja to the score table, and all of a sudden the Celtics go on a 7-0 run. So that's why I just want to explain a little bit of maybe looking at a box score and how to think like, hey, it's not always correct. Sometimes it's warranted, but sometimes it's not. Baines is probably it's -6. He was probably the second best player on the Grizzlies overall, outside of Ja. But anything do you have on the Grizzlies and how they played? We don't want to get into your Jake LaRavia agenda just yet. Just hold off. That's coming.
It is? That's going to be part of the docket today? All right.
Yes, Jake LaRavia, the step back Jake is coming. Don't worry. But let's go. Let's finish up about the Grizzlies. Anything you liked or didn't like, and then we'll go the Celtics, and then we're going to go to step back Jake.
Yeah, before we get into the game, to add on to the plus minus thing, like I said, box plus minus, Basketball Reference is the one I use. It always takes me a day to upload the games from before, so it doesn't refresh automatically like NBA does. But the box plus minus for that, you can find it in advanced on the advanced tab underneath the team, and you scroll to the right. And if you see a negative, that's indicator of a bench player. And anything positive, like Jaws right now, last I checked, was like 6 point something. That's typically a guy who makes an all-NBA team, that kind of number. Bane is a little over 4 point something, which is usually an indicator of someone who makes an all-star team. Everyone else, if you're a 0, you're basically a standard starter. Like you don't add, you're not negative. But if you're at negative, like a -2, like you're a 6-man, and you're a bad bench player. And Dylan is a -5 right now. And this is early in the season. That's why I think it's interesting they're huge swings early in the season. So you probably shouldn't really, if it's still -3 or 4 for Dylan when we get to January, there is a problem. And he is just not adding anything to the basketball court when he's on the court. He is a net negative for this team. So that's what I would kind of promote that everyone look at instead of going purely per game plus minus, is just check on the box plus minus under advanced. Scroll all the way to the right. You'll see the negatives and positives. But that's on Basketball Reference. But with the game itself, the reason I have the problem why I think Santi was the worst in the game is because the Celtics were targeting him.
Yeah.
Anytime they could get him in a screen and roll, get him to switch, it was ISO, and they could take him whenever they wanted. So there's a lot of pull-up threes in space. This is probably the reason why Santi didn't get any of his rebounds like we all thought, is because he's on the perimeter guarding Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, switched on to Marcus Smart. Like, he's trying to have to guard these guys.
Yeah.
And so he just did not hold up defensively. He really hasn't held up defensively at all. He's gotten, everybody gets excited about a block, like a weak side block. That's really all he's really added to this team is every once in a while weak side block. And when he's not hitting threes, which I know he hit like 1 or 2 tonight or last night.
Yeah, I think he actually hit, 2.
Yeah. And like, if that's all he's going to give you, there's a reason why against someone of the Celtics quality, like someone that's expected to make the finals, like someone that is the odds-on favorite, I believe, right now with the Bucks to win the NBA championship, it just is not going to. Like, you can only do one thing, and that's stand in the corner or stand around the perimeter and shoot threes. If you are one-dimensional like that, you're going to be a negative for a team like the Grizzlies, who's going, obviously has plans to being a much better team, to be in that kind of talked about air like the Celtics are. So that's kind of like my nitpick thing with Santi. Obviously with Steven, you miss the whole physicality. You miss the defensive rebounding. I thought the Grizzlies really put on a good effort despite scoring 106 points. Like, they didn't hold the Celtics to 109, but that was an underachievement for the Celtics. And I think a lot of that was just sheer force of will from the Grizzlies. Like, they knew without Steven that they had to bring the physicality themselves. And you really saw that from the jump, I thought. Like, I'll be honest, I was on the Celtics in this game. It's in a bad spot. Third game in 4 days after back-to-back, it's a slam dunk, right? We already saw it with the Mavericks. They lost by 40-plus. I wasn't sure that they'd lose by 40-plus, but I knew it was more than likely going to be like an 8 to 12-point Celtics win. After the first quarter, I was nervous because they really brought it. And they were really – this is the first time that I really thought the guys that were in were going all out. And I felt that about certain guys throughout the start of the season. But it was really kind of the first time when they got – like, it just seemed like they were really going for this one. Like, they wanted this one bad. They wanted to prove that they belong with a team who has dominated them in the past without their brute physical enforcer, right? So I was actually impressed by the performance, even though it was 106 was their point scored, and offense didn't look great. Defense was bad at times, and Celtics went on huge runs, and that was the game. I thought it was encouraging for the Grizzlies to compete with a team that is the odds-on favorite to win the finals, as injured as they are, as shorthanded as they are, and were able to put up a fight to where it was a 1-point game and came down to Tatum making 2 free throws. And what happens if Ja doesn't slip on the floor? I mean, it's a half-court shot heave, but to be in that position at all is, I think, a really good sign for when everybody comes back. Because if you're able to fight and come back from that and not give up, most teams, like, just ask the Wizards, like, they just gave up, right? Now, I know at the end they came back, but in that first half, they were done. Like, there was no fighting them. And the Grizzlies show fight. Now, if they get 4 key rotation players back with that same fight, the only way this team is not a top 4 seed in the West for me is the continual nagging injury problem. If everybody's back, to me, I don't know how it's not a top 4 team in the West. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're really good. I think they can beat you in a lot of different ways. You know, and realistically, like the Grizzlies, they did not play bad. They actually had 9 more shot attempts, and they had 1 extra offensive rebound overall. So the Grizzlies were able to get out and get some shots up, and actually create better, offense. Like they had 15 turnovers and we had 11. So there's 4 of them right there. The Grizzlies, they played well, much better than I ever would have imagined that they were going to play last night. We obviously had, we bet both of us on the Celtics to win. And so to say that we're not homers, that you can say my pocket always says that I will be honest with myself. And third game, 4 days on a back-to-back, with a team coming in that's got a day of rest. They were here the day before. They were eating Gus's fried chicken. And so it was a game that I expected the Grizzlies to lose. And the fact that they played as well as they did without Steve-O is big. Looking through the box score, it is almost identical. Like the Grizzlies took 7 more 3-pointers and 9 shots overall more. But if you look at the offensive rebounds, it was 8 and 7. Rebounds defensive, 37-38, 45 and 45 total rebounds. 27 assists, 26 assists, 19. Don't care about the fouls. Steals 4-5, turnovers 11-15. Like it was, one team shot 32.4% from 3, the other shot 34.1% from 3. One shot 45 overall, the other shot 46.3. Like literally, the game is identical on both sides. You did not have the chance where the Grizzlies, rebounds are the biggest thing that pushed them over the edge. Like you didn't have that. You didn't have that at all at advantage, which they normally do. And so if you look at a team that's going to get back Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson Jr., Zaire Williams, I feel good, because who won't you see in that game? You will not see David Roddy. You will not see Xavier Tillman. And honestly, unless somebody doesn't go hurt, I don't want to push your agenda for you, but you could possibly not see Santi Aldama. Like literally, like that could be it. Like you could actually have those 3 fill those roles. I don't know. I think this is going to be a long season. I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but the Celtics are good. One thing that stuck out to me, and I was making I was trying to actually make the meme, the Spider-Man meme. Jaylen Brown reminds me so much of Dylan Brooks. Like they're a little crazy. They shoot a lot. Like they shoot so many stupid shots. Like just like I was like, why is Jaylen Brown? Why is he doing that? He took 20 shots last night, 1 of 6 from deep, 8 of 20 overall. He ended up with 21 points. But I know they need him to shoot. But like, I don't know. Like 8 for 20 and 6 of 17 are very similar to me. One went 0 of 4 from 3 and one went 1 of 6 from 3. I'm not saying that they're the same player, because I like Jaylen Brown so much more, but the stupid stuff that they both do, it literally just made me laugh. Like Jaylen Brown had 7 turnovers last night. 7. That's what got me. I was just like, God.
I've never seen, well, maybe they weren't all exactly this, but I've never seen 3 offensive fouls on a player where they were all using the guard hand, right? Like the arm bar to keep the body off of them. And one of them was against Ja, and he realized it was Ja, and he tried to pull it back at the last second.
Yeah.
He already made contact. I don't remember seeing that, where a guy got 3 offensive fouls, all driving to the basket, all trying to use that arm bar to create space to keep the defender off of him. So that was a first for me, because Jaylen Brown usually kills us. Yeah. Like usually he's like a 35-40 against the Grizzlies, because it's just a matchup. It's just a mismatch. and he was just not good tonight. And maybe you can point to that. So maybe that's why the reason the Celtics didn't blow us out when they should have blown us out. But I've got to give a lot of credit to the effort of the Grizzlies wings for that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have elite size or speed on the perimeter to defend guys, but what they gave in that was a lot of effort, right? Like, and they like to run a lot of scheme stuff, and their scheme worked pretty well. Like, it drew those offensive fouls and dumb plays. And I mean, the Celtics, they shoot the most threes in the NBA or something like that.
Yeah. Even though they didn't last night. They didn't last night.
Yeah. And that's because they lived at the rim more, because there's no rim protection. But a lot of that run was fueled off driving in. The guy has to help the other guy. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Would you rather yield the three or give up a dunk to Jason Tatum? You know, like, I would much rather see if Derek White can shoot me out of the game from the 3-point line. Like, it just is what it is. Right? You kind of have to pick your poison if you're not fully healthy. And so I think the Grizzlies sold to the drive, even though the Celtics were still productive getting there. And so they hit just enough threes, and really it was kind of more so the free throws that kind of explains the margin a little better, which is odd, because to me it's like, I don't know Jaw's free throw attempts from last night, but it feels like with the past couple games, like, he's just not getting calls anymore.
Yeah,
and
he had 9.
I don't know. Okay, he did have 9. It should have been like a James Harden 14 or 15 type game.
Yeah,
because I don't know what's going on with that, but there is something there to me where like, he's not getting calls like consistently, and I don't understand what that is.
Yeah, Tatum had 16 last night. The Celtics as a whole had 28 to the Grizzlies 14. Yeah. And so you can just look at that. You know, obviously they doubled them up, and free throw attempts. That's really where it comes down to. Like, there is no way that a smaller guard that's more explosive and Ja is getting less. I know they said that that Al Horford was going straight up and whatever. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. And because Horford, how many fouls did he have? He probably had 2. Al Horford, 2. He had one foul. Like, Al Horford being at the rim, getting Ja coming into him. I'm sorry. There's no way you get one foul call the whole entire game. And how many minutes Al Horford played? 32 minutes that he had one foul. And how much he contests at the rim. There's no way. That's just – I'm not saying they should call more fouls because he's Ja. I'm just saying because he gets up there and honestly gets into the defender. But there's got to be some kind of call. There's got to be something. Like, there's no way they're going straight up every time. But whatever. All right. Enough about that. Let's actually give a little bit to our guy and the people who pay us is Zach Jaworski State Farm, where they treat you like family. If you need a rate quote of any sort, whether it be for home, auto, boat insurance, jewelry insurance, whatever you might need, just go ahead and give the guys at Zach Jaworski State Farm a call. Let them know that the Grizz 901 team sent you. You can call them at 901-459-4227 at ZachInsuresMemphis.com, ZACH InsuresMemphis.com. Just go in there. They're a great crew, great squad. I promise you they will make sure they take care of you. They will help you save you money. I promise. I am living proof of that. This is a testimony every time because literally I pay him every month. And I think I pay him less than I probably would others. So give him a call. Offices in East Memphis and Collierville. But call the East Memphis location. It's their main office. It's 901-459-4227. Another thing I want to give a shout out to is our merch. We have new merch. This is the new but old design. The first one we did, the only one that they've made. I have it. I didn't love it, so we changed it. I literally went back in there and we changed it. But make sure you go if you want any Grizz 901 merch. I like it. My wife actually wears it. My kids wear it. You can go to grindcitydesigns.com /Grizz901. That's grind, like the grit and grind, grindcitydesigns.com /Grizz901 and get your merch. I'm going to try to do something real quick. I don't even know if I can, but I'm going to do my best. Let's try it real quick. If you're on YouTube, hopefully this works. I think this might work. Let's see. Let's see, Ryan, if it works. I got to bring it in.
Waiting.
In 1 second. Yep, 1 second.
Oh.
All right, there we are. We're in there somewhere, right? Okay. Here we are. All right, so if you're looking at Grind City Designs, you should be able to see it. This is their website, right? So you just go to it and you just go to stores, right? And just click down. If you didn't put in the right stuff, just go down Grizz901 and it should pop up pretty easily for you. It's got to keep loading. Give it a second. I think it's loading. No, maybe not. So it's not loading because I got to share the other one. Why? I don't know. Technical difficulties. It should work now. You got to go straight to the site because technical difficulties. All right, here we go. We're back to it. All right. So here it is. I shared the wrong page is what it was. And so do you see it moving down?
Yes.
Okay. So that's our logo. Obviously, we add some lettering, some borders around the G, the Grizz 901, added more white to it. So I don't know if this is the first time you're seeing the new logo. I don't think I sent it to you. How do you like it? Does it look better?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I liked it before.
Yep. Well, so do I, but it was just too big. Like it was too big. My favorites.
Let me get a pocket tee. Got pocket tee on
listen, there? That's the next thing. We got hoodies. We got shirts. We're going to do a pocket tee. And here's the youth ones. They're really cool. This is the white one. I think looks really good. I have a yellow. I think they had a yellow one at one point. See, it looks pretty good. Looks good. But yeah, my favorite ones.
$200.
$22.
Oh.
22 or 25, depending on what you like. If you want to spend a little bit more. The white shirts. I'm not trying to tell everybody like we're doing, this is an info commercial. If you're on the podcast, I apologize. But the white ones, they look so good. I think it pops really good with the logo. So anyway, all right, we're gonna stop sharing. We're gonna get back to the content. But make sure you go get some merch. Shirts are like 25 or 22. We do have hoodies, hats. We have koozies. We're going to probably add a pocket tee at some point. I think it looks really cool. And obviously you just requested it. So we'll make sure we get that on there. But just go to grindcitydesigns.com /Grizz901. All right. This is what everybody's been waiting for. Dat Boi be hooping. Step back, Jake. Have you ever heard him? Dat Boi be. Have you heard him say that?
No, I have not.
So he was in an interview, and I think it somehow it came out, and he said, "Yeah, Dat Boi be hooping." Yeah. So I refer to him as Dat Boi be hooping now because that's literally what he always says. All right, so step back, Jake. Jake LaRavia had a beautiful step back last night. I know we both, I think, commented on it via text. But you wanted to start the agenda. Yeah. And this is the worst time for Santi Aldama to be in this agenda right now because he is on the struggle bus last night. He did not have a good game. Man. We had Black Lives Matter talking big Jake from Wake, make him shake. Man, little shimmy, little shake. If he could get the shake, it'd be the Jake shake. Oh my God. Listen, we can do this all day. I'm a dad. I'm going to give dad jokes. So I love them, but I'm probably not going to probably be good for the rest of everyone else. But you want to talk about Jake LaRavia starting over Santi Aldama. You better give me a caveat, because are you talking about right now?
Yes.
Very moment.
Yes, right now. Yeah, I would start. I think Santi Aldama only plays because he's 6'11". And that's like, I don't understand why. Now, you pointed out that he's had injury, and that's totally fair.
Right. He has a hip issue, Jake does.
Yeah, so he had hip soreness or whatever that means. But obviously he has issues defensively where he can't stop fouling. And that's just a rookie issue, right? But the positive that he brings on the offense, I think, outweighs more than his potential foul trouble issues. He is more connective of an offensive player to this team than Santi is. Santi is good in a very specific role, right? Like, guard one of the weaker offensive players on the team, get us a defensive rebound off the weak side, help weak side defense. Jake can do all of that. He's not a shot blocker, but we've seen he can rebound. He competes on defense still more than Santi does, I think. He's just foul prone, and he's a better three-point shooter, and he can actually dribble and pass. So I'm not saying that Jake's going to be a starter, when everybody comes back. I certainly don't think that. But I want to start the agenda now that I think that depending on what happens with Dylan Brooks, I think Jake is the very obvious candidate to be the starter in a year or two, depending on what happens with Dylan. And it might come to a point in a year or two, if Dylan is back, where I would rather have Jake start over Dylan Brooks. So I'm not trying to kick Santi while he's down. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm not super active unless it's a Grizzlies game. But I have been perplexed why Roddy has been playing over Jake. Makes no sense at all to me. And I have wanted more minutes for Jake, and I think that he should start for Santi because he just keeps the offense moving. Santi catches the ball, the offense stops. It's done. You have to wait 4 to 5 seconds for Santi to decide what he's going to do. Jake knows what he's going to do before he gets it, right? Like, he can read the defender closing out to him. Well, I'll take this one dribble, draw another guy kick. Or, okay, they're going to close out, I'm going to shoot. Or I'm going to drive all the way to the basket. Or I'm going to make this backdoor cut. And I just think that continuity, there we go, continuity of offense is much more important for this group than someone who is 3 inches taller, per se, and is theoretical a better role fit, I guess you could say, for Santi, right? Like, he's like the prototypical 6'11" Euro player that's supposed to be able to shoot. I just think Jake's offense is much more additive, and I cannot wait for when everybody comes back. I'm dying for a lineup of Ja, Bane, Zaire, Jake, and Triple J. I don't know how you guard it. Like, literally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Like, the only player that is a ball stopper in that lineup is Ja when he goes one-on-one. But you want Ja to go one-on-one, and it's Zaire. Like, it's the best offensive 5 lineup that we've got. And it could also play defense, right? So I want everyone to get back healthy because that's the lineup I most want to see right now with this Grizzlies team. So, big fan of Jake. I thought he was for real after seeing him in Summer League, just for that one game where he lit it up and then he just sold the rest of Summer League. I'm a big fan of Jake, and I think he is more additive to this team. When he's not in foul trouble, but he's going to foul a lot. So that's just kind of the thing with Jake. Like, he is. If you move him to that starter role, he's probably going to have 3 or 4 fouls.
Yeah. I agree. But, okay, so hear me out this. Okay, so last night was different. Steve-O was not in the game. But the first guy off the bench was Jake LaRavia at the 6:50 mark. He came in for Santi Aldama. All right, so let's say Steve-O is there, and Steve-O plays pretty much with Ja on a consistent basis. Like they go in and out together majority of the time. Maybe Steven a little bit earlier, depending on foul trouble or the time of the game, or if you want to push Ja a little bit longer in a quarter or towards the end of a quarter, whatever. But for the most part, you see those two guys paired up. What I would like to see when Steven gets back and he's healthy and everything's normal and they don't have two bigs. If it's like you're playing Cleveland, I would say we might want to have Aldama out there on Mobley, even though Mobley, I think, is going to take him to the rack. I think Aldama being long and able to block shots better, I think he's very much a key asset to this team. So outside of them having two bigs that are really good, I would love to see Jake coming in about the 8-minute mark. Okay. Maybe he was pretty much 7-minute mark last night, 6:50. So around the 8-minute mark, you get Santi Aldama coming out of the game, Jake going in. Well, then you have your lineup that you like. And this is all predicated on Jaren Jackson Jr. not being here. When he gets here, obviously everything will change. But Jake comes in, and then you have that lineup. But what that does is it allows Aldama to come back in, because he can come in towards the end of the quarter, into the last 4 minutes of that quarter. And who does he come in with? He comes in with Tyus Jones. That allows him to be then your backup center on that lineup. But also he can play alongside of a guy like Brandon Clark. I think he can space it out for Brandon Clark. Okay. So I think all that works good. I think that allows Jake to spread the floor a little bit with Ja, who gives him another shooter, even though Adama's been shooting. But I think that gives you more size and keeps off a guy like Xavier Tillman. You have no need for him anymore because Adama, he is your backup center, right? And so I think then that's when at that point you're bringing in Aldama in the last 4 minutes out for Steven Adams. And I think that's an easy transition. And then towards the end of the game, if you need a big, you go back towards the Santi Aldama, towards the stretch. Just like they do, they sub out Bain and sub him back in the fourth to make a good stretch run. I think you can do the same thing with Aldama, or you can transition into Jake if you need more shooting. I think that would make complete sense. But once Jaren gets back here, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a move going, because I guess the best way I can say it is Santi is situational. Jake is every day. Jake is every day. And to me, I would much rather invest playing time in someone like Jake, who I know can be an 82-game player for me.
Santi has been good, though, all year.
He's been fine, but he's not a guy that I think is an every-night player. And we've seen that. If he's not hitting 2 threes, he's useless. So even when Jake's not hitting threes, he's driving, he's kicking, he's keeping the ball moving. It doesn't stop.
There's more activity.
When Santi gets it, the offense is done. Like, the offense stops. Everyone waits to see what Santi does. And most of the time, it's to go bail him out because he has to start dribbling. So for me personally, I'm really not trying to pile on Santi. Like, that's not like, I agree with you 100%. He has an important role for this team moving forward. And especially in the playoffs, like, you're going to have really good Santi rotation minutes in the playoffs. That you're going to have it. But for me personally, if you're still looking at long term for this team, which is what this front office and this coaching staff has always said, I would much rather invest 24 to 28 minutes into Jake than I would into Santi. That's just personally. Because I just think he is more additive. I think he is more additive overall to the potential of this team than what Santi is, who I think is a situational rotation role player, and that's his ceiling to me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think Jake is obviously the much better player. All in all, Santi has taken huge steps. Like, the steps that he could take, if he took this past off season, if he doubles that, like in compound, like keeps it going next off season, the off season of that, Santi could be the backup big that would make a guy like Brandon Clark expendable, because Brandon Clark can't stretch.
Yeah.
But he is good at what he does. And that's what I like about Brandon Clark. He's finding his zone. He's being good at what he's good at. He just got paid. He's not making tons of money with this new labor agreement that's going to come. The amount of money that's going to be allowed to be paid to these guys is going to be crazy. So these contracts are going to be small compared to what's going to be coming. And so getting a guy like Brandon Clark on the contract he's at is great. John Conchar is just laughable how much he's not getting paid compared to other people. But it also gives you a reason. Like, John Conchar is situational completely. He's going to come in, he's going to do some things, and he's going to obviously be a winning player. But if it's not like the right time, if it's not working all for him, you can not play him, and you can play your other guys. I think he's a guy that doesn't need a lot of time. He can come in and affect the game, hit a couple shots, make a couple plays, and I think that's how he affects the game. He needs 15 minutes a night. I think he's a good player. But all in all, I do like it. I do like your Jake agenda. We're not piling on Santi. Santi's played well all season. He had a bad game. This isn't about last night. Okay.
No.
I know that I just want to preface that to people who think that we might be piling on having a bad game and you're coming for his head. No.
This is not a Dylan. This is not Dylan's situation to where he has a good game. There's one side that's a C, and then he has a bad game. The other side's a C. Like, this is not that situation.
Right. No, I agree. I agree completely. All right, that's all we have. Ryan, do you have anything else?
I don't. Well, actually, do you want to mention anything about the Spurs game?
Yeah, go ahead. Hit on it real quick. It's Wednesday. We are going to have the podcast. It was going to be Nate. It's going to be Nate and I on Thursday. So the game is tomorrow. Let's go ahead and hit on the Spurs game. I know you have some content about that. So go ahead.
I don't want to spend too long since we're about to wrap up, so I don't want to add another 15 minutes. But this is a really interesting Spurs team to me. And any team that, like, just ask the Utah Jazz, ask any team that doesn't have a star, but a bunch of C+, B- players that share the basketball, can win a decent amount of games in the NBA. Right. And you've seen that from the Spurs already. So I think the Grizzlies will win. Like, all indications point to me that this is a 12-plus point victory. Like, I should say this. There's no middle to me. Like, 55+% or whatever of NBA games land on the, 3 to 8 point range. To me, this is a 12-plus win, or it's down to the wire like the Celtics game. Like, this is a completely inverse. Like, I think the Grizzlies could be the Celtics in this scenario, and the Spurs be the Grizzlies, right? Like, big run, go up by double digits, and then there's a late run by the Spurs to make it close at the very end. Like, I could see that. Then I could also see the Grizzlies running off on this team. And that is really hinged upon two players for the Spurs, and that's Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is basically a three-point shooter. So if you're a props person, be looking at his three-point numbers. If both of those guys are going, the Spurs might win. Because Keldon has been playing really well too. He's a three-point shooter now, and he's driving to the basket and finishing. So he is a really dangerous player. I expect Dylan to guard him. Be interested to see how Keldon deals with physicality, because he hasn't really played a physical defender yet. So we'll see if that throws him off at all. But the Spurs there is no selfishness on this team. And a team that is willing to move the ball side to side and whoever shoots it, like, that's a dangerous team, right? And these are still NBA players, even though everyone expects them to tank going for Wembanyama, this is a dangerous team early because they're still trying. When the injuries start to hit, that's when they'll kind of fall off. But early in the season, like, this is the best the Spurs will probably be all year. And this is the time where they can really catch you. I mean, that back-to-back loss to the Jazz can't be explained, right? Injuries and stuff like that. Jazz not playing, he's sick, that can be explained. This one can be explained too, but it is a danger spot. So I don't want the Grizzlies to think it's the Spurs, and I don't think they will. But this is an interesting team that could put up a good fight against the Grizzlies. But it is mainly two guys, and they're not stars. But if they get going, it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah. So it's feast or famine with this game. I don't think it's a 6-point win by the Grizzlies. I think it's a 15 to 18-point win by the Grizzlies, or a 1 to 3-point win by the Grizzlies.
Yeah, the Spurs team is obviously they're frisky, man. It's crazy. They're 5-6 on the year. They're right there in the middle of the thick of things. They've been playing well. What they have is just going to be like, if they can get hot, they can win a game. If they're not hot, they're not going to win. They're not going to do anything that's going to wow you. They're just going to play good Spurs basketball. And they're literally a bunch of role players that are put into position to flourish. Question on that. There's a guy that came out and said, is it Devin Vassell? Is it Vassell?
Yeah.
Vassell?
I think it's Vassell, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Devin Vassell. He said that he would, if there's a redraft, he would draft Devin Vassell over Desmond Bane and Tyrese Maxey. Even now.
Sure. I assume he's a Spurs fan.
No, he's not. He said that he literally had Vassell higher than Bane and Maxey. And then now looking at his defensive metrics are so much higher than the other two, and that his offensive metrics they have potential to be just as good, if not higher, than both of those other two players. Would you agree?
No, of course not. Now, I'm not as high on Tyrese Maxey as most people.
Yeah.
I think Maxey I think he's a good player. I certainly wouldn't rank Vassell higher than both of those. You could maybe argue with me that eventually maybe Vassell is better than Maxey. But certainly I don't see that particularly. So, I wouldn't draft him over both of those players. I definitely wouldn't do that. But he is a good player, and that's the whole problem with everybody wants to draft. It's just because they want to say they would take this guy, all three can be good players. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be because you called it so you win. I think all three are going to be really good players for a long time. But I certainly, if I were redrafting teams, or if I was redrafting a class, I don't think anybody in their right mind, we know right now, would take Vassell over those two.
No, I agree with that. Something if you're looking at with a guy like Desmond Bane, only two players in NBA history have a career average of 42% from the 3-point line on 5+ attempts per game. One of them is Steph Curry, the other Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is so good. I want to bring up Devin Vassell because Spurs versus Grizzlies. I'm going to do whatever I can to push this agenda from this guy because I want whatever this Tuesday day is where people are out. They left the NBA off so people can get out and vote and do their thing. I want people to understand that I'm pushing the agenda so Desmond Bane sees it somehow, maybe on the flight. And he absolutely obliterates whoever this Devin fella is.
He should be matched up against him. Like, honestly, I expect Dylan to guard. I expect Dylan to guard Keldon and Bane to guard Vassell.
Yeah, well, we're going to go Bane, Vassell. I'm going to start on the artwork. I'm going to try to figure something out. I'm going to push this agenda. I have over 24 hours to do it, so we're going to do whatever we can to push that. So I'm excited. I think the Spurs team is feisty. I think they're good. I think the Grizzlies, should win. I hope they're not looking past a Friday night matchup potential
with their future teammate Anthony Edwards.
Man, don't.
Oh.
I saw that. I liked it, but I kept it moving. I didn't want to spend too much time. People are rumoring Jaren Jackson could be returning that game. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe he's ready. I don't know.
Let's bring him back off a foot injury and play Rudy Gobert and
That's what I'm thinking.
Great. Makes
That's
no
what
sense.
I'm thinking. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. But people are saying it, so I'm going to see what happens. But I hope not, because it's not the game I want him coming back on. When you're having to beat up with him, but really he's pretty much on the perimeter guarding Karl-Anthony Towns, not Rudy Gobert, because Steve-O should be back. And as long as Steve-O's back, I feel good about this week. Wednesday and Friday night games. You're going to have the Spurs on Wednesday at 7, and then the Friday night matchup against the Timberwolves. Which Anthony Edwards just eats us alive most games. So hopefully he's just standing at the 3-point line, just hanging out, right? Just
maybe he'll dunk in this game. Has he still not dunked this year?
I don't know. I have no clue about that. But that's all we have. Anything else you have before we get out of here?
No, I'm very excited for tomorrow to be 7-4 or 7-3, whatever we are.
Yeah,
could be the opposite.
Yeah, I think we're 7-4, I believe. Anyway, but make sure you get a chance to check out the other podcasts that are going to be on our Grizz 901 kind of podcast network in a sense. We're trying to bring you more content than just me. So instead of me doing it, we're going to make sure we have our shows on Tuesday with Ryan, Thursday with Nate, and then Monday it should be coming out, which is the No Bluffing podcast by those three, which is Luke, Nicole, and Chris. They're doing a very good job. We could have more coming to join our Grizz 901 family. We could have another podcast joining soon. We're in the works of talking about it. But the No Bluff crew asked a question, Ryan. I want you to give me one answer, one word answer. Yes or no. That's it. Yes or no. Desmond Bain, All-Star this year.
Yes.
Yes, I like it. That's all we have. Let's get out of here. What else do? We be nice and tell your friends.